This video, just want to talk about my stance on the UFC. Somebody sent me an email saying that he misunderstood one of the videos I made talking about the UFC being sold to some wealthy Chinese man, and he said that I made some statements saying that that if more people are into cage fighting, then more people will be into the martial arts, and he mistakenly thought that I was supportive of the UFC. But basically, just wanted to make that clarified. I am not supportive of the UFC, and it's not martial arts. To me, as far as my study is concerned, it is not representing the martial arts. But what I meant by the statement was that people, back in the day, they would watch Bruce Lee movies, and then they would get involved with the martial arts because of Bruce Lee. And then through that, they'll find out about whatever martial arts schools are out there. And some of these schools may involve going to tournaments, some of them may not. But whatever school that they choose, it gets them started on that journey towards practicing some type of art. And whether or not they decide to be competitive with that art, that's up to them. And then people would watch like Jean-Claude Van Damme, The Karate Kid, Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Jackie Chan, Jet Li. Basically they'll be inspired by like actors, entertainers, and people out there making movies, and then they would get started in the martial arts through that inspiration. So basically what I meant is that nowadays it's more like action movies out there, and a lot of guns and stuff like that, and comic book superhero type of stuff. So there's really not like martial art movies out there. So basically what the UFC is doing is just basically it could provide an inspiration for people to get started in the martial arts. It doesn't mean that UFC is the martial arts. What it just means that it could inspire people to eventually find out about the martial arts. Through the UFC, some people may start getting into boxing or wrestling or Thai boxing, but then there will be some people that might look into Kung Fu or whatever, or Wushu, and then they end up finding out more about what art is, and then they end up discovering that, hey, the UFC is not martial arts, but they may essentially transform to become, with a fighting mentality, turning into an artist mentality. But it also could go the opposite effect of where somebody starts off as a martial artist, somebody that's been inspired by Bruce Lee, and then they turn into a fighter through the inspiration of the UFC. So people have the ability to transform from a fighter to an artist, or they have the ability to transform from an artist to a fighter. And it's up to you, which route that you wish to go to. But that's what I basically meant. I still am against that type of violence, but one thing that I want to mention is this, is that the UFC there would be no such thing as the UFC without martial arts. But if you flip it around, it's not going to be true the other way. Without the UFC, martial arts would still exist. Nobody could ever say that, hey, if the UFC is gone, then martial arts would disappear too. That's impossible. Martial arts is the foundation of it all. So, but without the martial arts, there wouldn't be a UFC. There'd just be a bunch of people that are fighting unscientifically and with anger and violence and no technique. It's just random people fighting that have no technique behind what they do, no skill, no art. UFC, even though it is very violent and is not representing the martial arts, the more popular it gets, the more that you'll see people that have skill in combat, people that are fit, and you get that from the martial arts. When you meet a martial artist, you'll see that he should be highly fit, he should be highly trained combatively, and he should be meditative and spiritual. It's just that the UFC is lacking the meditation and the spirituality. As time goes by, you may see some real techniques in there. You may see people that are pretty fit, but it's still not representing the martial arts. But they are exploiting the martial artists out there and turning them into fighters, and that's what's gaining popularity for such a thing as, UFC, and to make the money. Because people don't care to, it's not that they don't care, but it's not as enjoyable watching two people fight that don't know how to fight at all. It's a joke. But when you watch two people fight that are highly trained in something where they practice over and over and over again, when you see like two boxers that are highly skilled box, it can be entertaining. When you see a wrestler that's highly trained against a boxer that's highly trained, it can be entertaining. And that's what the UFC brings to the people, is trying to entertain people. And they cannot entertain people without people becoming highly skilled in combat. And the only way people can become highly skilled in combat is they need to practice martial arts. Because these techniques come from martial arts. All the techniques come from martial arts. The sport of boxing comes from martial arts. Fencing comes from martial arts. Wrestling comes from martial arts. Jiu-jitsu comes from martial arts. Taekwondo, point sparring comes from martial arts. Cage fighting comes from martial arts. It all comes from the arts, and the UFC just wouldn't be in existence if it wasn't for the martial arts. So what I mean is that the more people that get interested in the UFC, indirectly it could start pointing people towards learning about the martial arts. And if 100 people walk through the martial arts school, there might be 10 of them that actually become martial artists, and then the rest of the 90 may just remain fighters, but that's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of how things work. Not everybody's gonna be inspired to do good things. Even Bruce Lee, he inspired me to be where I am now, to head towards the path of martial arts. But there could be another person in another state or in another country that has been inspired by Bruce Lee to become a fighter. And that's the thing, that's the power of influence. You can influence people towards the positive, or you can influence people towards the negative. So the UFC essentially, yes, I don't support it, I don't like it, and it's not martial arts, but potentially, indirectly, it can help people open their eyes to learn about what martial arts is. It could be the start point. It could be, the introduction. It could be the thing that catches their eye. Because essentially, without the UFC, with the UFC, people are doing searches on YouTube, and they're learning about martial artists all over the world. They're learning about fighters all over the world. They start researching Floyd Mayweather, they find out about him. They start researching all the UFC fighters, they find out about them. And then they can start searching, and then they find out about me. They find out about Bruce Lee. They find out about Jet Li. So that's what I have to say about that.